Tim Votapka, and I am here with Roger Cartee, one of the new fellas here at Salem Lake. And we are going to do a special episode of Around Salem today. We're actually on location, looking out at a beautiful, very chilly October morning on a Saturday. A little bit of sliver of light cutting through the clouds. And Roger, I can't believe we are already in October. We just got here to do this in May to set up, and now everything is coming in, and most of the people are already out of here. So, can you believe that? How can that be?
Well, I think we've lived here for about 45 years, and of course everything seems to get shorter and shorter as you go through the years. But I think for us, it's you stay active, you do different things all summer, you enjoy the beauty, you're out on the lake, and before you know it, poof, the summer's gone. And we've enjoyed it. I don't do any fishing, but we're out on the boat, and we have cookouts outside. We have friends over, and so things are happening. We just keep busy. We enjoy being up here. We love the lake, and so it's a happy place for us to be.
Totally is, totally is. So, talking about the summer, tell us as far as what major things happened around the lake this summer.
Well, I think having been involved with the association for a long time, one of the things that really pleased me this year is that so many people getting active and involved in the association. We formed two very solid committees. We formed a milfoil committee that has a group of people on it that are very intelligent people, hardworking, dedicated to trying to save the lake. And that committee has done yeoman work in trying to resolve the problem we have with milfoil. We've had a fundraising committee that's been established, and they've been meeting on a regular basis. Dennis Bond's in charge of that. Ross Ogilvie is in charge of the milfoil committee. And those committees have been working literally year-round. And so I'm really pleased and proud of that. Along with that, they've brought in a lot of people from around their neighborhoods to help them with monitoring, checking what's going on around the lake and getting involved. And we've had a number of them come to our committee meetings and to our board meetings and offer their expertise and advice. And I think that's been a real strong plus for us. The other thing is something that I've been trying to kind of get going for years, and that's a social committee. And for the first time since I've been involved in the association, they had a social event at the Derby Beach House, and we had about 50 people show up, which was, really exciting. And unfortunately, I was in Savannah, Georgia, and I couldn't go, but there were plenty of pictures taken, videos taken, and I have heard nothing but good from that. People who live 2, 3, 4 camps away hardly ever see each other, socializing and getting to know each other. In greater detail, what their likes are, do they like fishing or boating or swimming or whatever it is. And I think getting the people around the lake to know each other a lot more is really important to really the strength of the lake.
Sure.
And so I've been really excited about that. Made a committee that worked on that, and they did a great job. And so I'm excited for next year because I think it's going to be even bigger and better, and so I'm very pleased with that.
Sure, sure. And who were the gals that organized that? Jerry and
Jerry Marchessault.
Paula was involved in that?
Yes, and I can't think of all of them right off the top of my head. I have a problem with memory every now and then.
That's fine. You know who you are.
Yeah. Well, some days I'm not sure.
We also had the VIP, Vermont Invasive Patroller Workshop, which was a field project that was back right around the middle of July. I think it was the 15th or 16th of July before the annual meeting, and I was part of that. We had a lot of fun where we were over at the beach house there, and folks from the DEC and aquatic biologists came and gave us a seminar and a hands-on learning workshop where we were able to identify different species and distinguish between what's native and what's invasive, and we were surprised at the variety of plant life that is in these waters that you take for granted.
Right.
And the bulk of it is all good and healthy.
Well, we skim along the top, and we don't pay attention to what's growing underneath much, unless it's right on our beach where you don't like it because you want to go out and swim and do all that stuff. And what are all these weeds out here? Well,
Yeah.
they're native aquatic plants.
Sure,
And,
sure.
So yeah, it's. I think our eyes have been opened a lot this year because we have so many people that have been diving and snorkeling and so on, and they're educating all of us so much more about what's under the water.
Totally. So now that we're into these different committees and programs, and we're at the end of a year already, going into next year, kind of looking ahead, what do you think are the priorities for the community going into next year, and even beyond that? But obviously next year is what's in view.
I think maintaining what we have, but the big elephant in the room is milfoil.
Yeah.
And my biggest fear is that we still have some people around the lake who don't understand the seriousness of this situation. And if we don't get it under control next year, we could lose our lake. I mean, that stuff is so bad, and people just don't realize it. Some people don't realize it because they might not get out on the lake much, or it's growing under the water and they can't see it, so it's not there.
Yeah.
And now that you go around the north end of the lake and on the Route 105 side of the lake, the west side, you see it. It's not only is it up to the top of the water, but it's laying in the water. And before long, you're just going to have a mat of green. You can't swim through it. You can't boat through it. And if you do put a boat out there, you're going to have to get somebody every couple of weeks to cut it down so you can get to your boat or get your boat in.
Yeah.
And so and the other thing that bothers me about that is I was very, very angry earlier in the summer, and I just upset of the fact that for over 5 years, we've been educating the public about milfoil in the lake. I mean, you've done an incredible job with the media part and the stuff that you put on, the materials, the video of the diver swimming through the milfoil.
Shout out to Matt Hammond.
Yes, just great with the help from Matt. And there's a guy that just wants to help with the lake. And I'm out on the lake with a boat with my wife and her sister in the boat, and this jet ski goes ripping all the way from the north end of the lake, all the way up the west side, right through the milfoil beds with not a thought. And 10 minutes later, a speedboat comes right up through there, 150, 200 feet from shore, right through the middle of the milfoil beds. And it's like we've been spending 5 years fighting this, trying to get milfoil out of the lake. And that one jet ski, that one boat, in that one sweep has destroyed so much of what we tried to do, because they break up the plants, fragments spread all over the lake. If you go to the north end of the lake now, you see milfoil laying right over the top of the water.
Yeah.
And so much of that probably comes from the fact that on that west side of the lake, if there's any action over there, it just goes right down along towards the Clyde and what they call Busy Bay over there, and it's just loaded with milfoil. And it's only going to get worse if we can't get it under control next year.
Yeah.
So I think, in closing on that, I think that we do a great job educating the people around the lake. And I think that unfortunately there are those few people here and there that either haven't got the message or don't understand it, because why would you go right through a bed of milfoil knowing that you're trying to get the stuff out of there? And so I think, I'll put some of the blame on us. Maybe we've got to do a better job of educating people around the lake. And if anybody has any suggestions, we're more than happy to hear those.
Yeah, totally.
But I think that the people that are on the lake have got to converse with those people around them. They see people out on the lake with jet skis. They've got to let them know that that's a problem, that they've got to get out into the middle of the lake. There's plenty of water out in the middle of the lake where you can do figure eights and do all the stuff you want. You don't have to do it 150 feet from shore right in the middle of, a milfoil bed.
Yeah.
Because right now, in particular, in the last 3-4 weeks, the milfoil is so fragile that any motion that's going to, get it disturbed they break up into pieces all over the place.
That's the frustrating thing about this plant. It's so fragile, especially from August through, and now as I paddle around on a couple of the nicer days we've had this week, it is thicker than it was just 2 weeks ago when I was last up here. And yet, as hardy as this plant is, as robust as it is, it breaks apart so easily. But that's part of its reproductive adaptation to the environment.
Sure.
It's very frustrating because one little fragment of the thing, and we've been out on the boat with the divers and all, one little fragment can reseed.
Well, they tell me it grows about 2 inches a day.
2 inches a day.
So
2 inches a day.
Can you imagine that? 2 inches a day, and in a couple of weeks you've got milfoil. You know, it's in some places because the lake is so shallow all the way around it. You know, get into shallow water, and the milfoil is already at the top.
Sure.
And so you just, we went out 3 or 4 weeks ago and down through the north part of the lake, down to past the Siskin Coots and the beach house and all that. And this was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there had been boat activity in that area in the morning and along the west side of the lake. And there were hundreds of fragments of milfoil floating on the surface of the water.
Yeah.
Which means that somebody went right through the middle of a milfoil bed that had grown to the top of the water. And in driving right through it, tore those plants to shreds. And there's hundreds of fragments of milfoil that are going to grow new plants next year.
Easily.
So.
Easily. The other thing about the milfoil issue is it's an infestation. It's a colony. It's not just an aesthetic issue, as I understand. I mean, this is a bio issue where if this thing takes over, as you had said at the top of the conversation, you know, the lake could be ruined. I mean, from an ecological standpoint, that involves the biodome of the water, meaning fish and other species that we all enjoy watching, catching, releasing, and all that is at threat.
Oh, really? Yeah, because it gets so thick. It's unbelievable how thick it gets, and you can't swim in it, you can't boat in it. It plugs up your motor, and it's just a mess. You can't do that in it. You can go through and cut it all up as you go, and some people try to fish in it because fish like to hide in vegetation, but it's going to get so thick that it prevents, takes up all the oxygen in the water and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of negative things that go along with it that, if we as a lake association don't understand that now, we never will. I've had people say, well, how do you know where the milfoil beds are? How come you know that? And it's like, well, just go to our website. We've had pictures of the lake on our website.
I'll put the address right down here on the website.
For a long time that shows the location of the milfoil beds as they grow.
Yeah.
That the picture has changed over the years. Those have been on our website for years. And so people can't tell me that, well, I don't know where the milfoil is. All you gotta do is go to the website and it's gonna show you exactly where it is.
Yep.
You're gonna know where you live and where you gotta be careful. And the only place you gotta go out into the middle of the lake.
Sure. So we have milfoil, we have an issue with how to treat it, and I don't want to get into too much of the debate about what we're going to do treating it with what types of technology, but we do know that there's a Priscilla-core treatment that's a solution. It's a good solution. It's proven. It's got approval at the state level. So many, 11 lakes, I think, in Vermont have used it.
Yes.
And we just heard great news from Lake Iroquois. Couldn't be any better. I'll get that data to you on the website, too. So now that we're in October and we're staring down the face of November and January and February, what can people do who are not here now and won't be here till May and June and July next year? What can people do now to help us in the off season?
Number one is money. It is incredibly expensive to do this job.
Yeah.
And getting $50 or $100 here and there barely scratches the surface. We've been talking about trying to put together a pledge program where camp owners around the lake pledge X amount of dollars each year for 5 years. And it'd have to be a substantial amount. We can't say, well, we're going to get $50 every year for 5 years, because it's costing. We have dash divers out there. It's costing $1,000 a day,
Yeah.
just for the dash boat to go out and suction up what they can. They're pulling 50 to 60 barrels of milfoil a day and barely scratching the surface.
Yeah.
And so we need to attack the lake big time, and we've got to get at it really, really quick because it's starting to overtake the lake. The north end of the lake is milfoil is over the top of the water, laying down on the water. If you go down there, you can virtually see it from the shore.
Yeah.
So, we need money, and we need a pledge from campers to say, I'll give $500 a year for 5 years, just as an example. And if we had 100 people do that, that's a pretty substantial amount of money. Unfortunately, the state only allows us to do 40% of the littoral zone each year.
Right.
In other words, we can't go in and spread Priscillicor around the entire lake. The state says, no, you can only do 40% of it. Now, where that makes any sense, I don't understand. Somebody from the state would have to tell me where they came up with the figure 40% and why. It would seem to me that you could go in and do a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
But they only allow us to do 40%, so that means at least 3 years of putting Priscillicor in the lake. And it's not going to be cheap each year. Stuff gets expensive and more expensive as we go along. We've been talking with several organizations about the cost of doing that. And we'll come up with something eventually that we're going to need to do. We've been talking with people from Lake Iroquois, for example, and others. The Milfoil Committee has done an incredible job communicating with other people who are dealing with this and have had experience. And but to me, it boils down to one thing: money.
Yes.
You can have all the education in the world. You can say, we've got to do this, 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 this. But if you don't have the money to pay for it, forget it. You're going to lose your lake. It's as simple as that. So we've had a milfoil committee working hand in hand with a fundraising committee. We've raised some money through the fundraising committee. More and more people are giving more money, which leads me to believe they understand it. They get it. And I can't thank the people enough that are giving the $20 or the $50.
Sure.
Everything helps, but in order to get everybody to understand the seriousness of it, we might need $175,000 to $100,000 next year just to do the first treatment, and then you've got to go raise another $100,000, and then another $100,000, and so this is why we're talking about if we toss the idea around of seeing if camp owners would be willing to get involved with some kind of pledge program where they pledge to donate $500 a year for 3 years, 5 years, or whatever, or $250 a year, whatever we can get. But if everybody just gave $20 or $100, it's not going to cut it. It's such a serious problem that the only way we can do it is get enough money to put Priscillicor in there to take care of it.
Well, bottom line is the problem is here. The problem affects everybody. The problem untreated will get worse. You can either ignore it, confront it, or try to hide from it. And one of those things works.
Yeah.
The other two don't.
Yeah.
So we all have to confront this issue. And obviously everybody is in a different economical,
Right.
status,
Exactly.
and that's fine. So the idea is we have things set up so you can donate, but you don't have to donate once. You can donate as many times as you want.
Yeah.
In fact, we have a PayPal account now, which is accessible through the website. We're growing our email database, so if you see emails from us and you've already donated, thank you. Bear with us. We do tend to use email more frequently because we just need to continue to communicate and educate and make the awareness there. So my concern is always once we hit the November-December timeframe, the holidays kick in, people have their attention on other things, rightly so, and the lake might not be the top of mind thing that it is, which is why the pledge idea is gold and will work.
Yeah, and I can guarantee you the Milfoil Committee is going to be working 12 months of the year. They worked all last winter,
Sure.
putting the committee together and getting organized and getting information, for people around the lake, and they're continuing to work. I know you have had numerous meetings virtual meetings
Yep.
with the committee
Yep.
through the winter and all summer long, because people are spread out all over the place, but it's easy to jump on, the camera
Sure.
and get together. And you guys have done that. I mean, I can't say enough about what the Milfoil Committee has done to try to save this lake. And we should be proud of everything that they've done to get to the point where we are at now. People need to understand that once you get milfoil in the lake, it's almost impossible to get out. And until Priscillacor came on the scene, and I'm sure there are probably some other things out there, but until Priscillacor came on the scene, I know that there are lakes in Vermont that didn't think they had a chance of getting rid of it. Iroquois, for example, they started putting Priscillacor in a couple of years ago, and this year they found one little batch of milfoil.
Yeah. Out.
Yeah. So Priscillacor appears to work. There's no long history behind it, but we do know that, particularly from Lake Iroquois, that it does help the lake. And their native plants have come back beautifully. Fishing is great there. All of the things that were there before have come back. Didn't lose them.
Nope.
Didn't lose them, but they had to kind of sit back and take a rest while all this Priscillacor was doing its work. And now that it's done its job, the lake is coming back. So we do see a future here with Salem, but it's going to take the money. And I hate to say the money. I hate to go out begging people for money, but if you want to have your lake here where you can enjoy it, during the summer months, unfortunately, that's what we need to do.
We've all drawn a lot from the lake over the years,
Yeah.
and I remember a day. I'm a lot older than I look, so I remember the day when people only had hoses out for their water, and we all had to be very careful when we were putting around with our boats to not stir up the silt.
Yeah.
That was out. We're out by the ends of these lines, and that was my grandfather put that in on us, and now most everybody has wells and so forth. So it's very rare to see a bottle with a hose at the end. There's a few. So we've had to adapt. We have to respond, and so be it. This lake needs our care. We've drawn a lot from it. We enjoy it, and now it needs a little bit back from us.
Yeah, it certainly does. So that's our biggest priority.
Got it.
And obviously, keep a social committee going. I've got some ideas for a couple of other committees that I'd like to see get established. I'd like to have somebody dealing specifically with fishing.
Okay.
So if we could get a committee going for people who would communicate on a regular basis with the Fish and Game Department, and what's coming down the pike with them, and we've always tried to be good neighbors with the Fish and Game Department, and I think we want to continue to do that. And so I'd like to get a committee. We lost one of our members a couple of years ago who was right on the verge of starting something like that, and so that kind of fell by the wayside for a while when all the milfoil thing started building up. But I think what I'd like to do is get a fishing committee started. We've had a lot of comments about people out there fishing for bass and catching bass all over the place. Not such good report from some people on walleye, but hopefully that'll come back. And I think if we had a committee keeping their fingers on the pulse of what's happening with the Fish and Game Department, that would help us even more. Because we got to think of our fishermen. There are a lot of people out here. There's one guy that goes with his little boat and he goes out to the sunken island every single night. You can see him standing in his boat out there fishing. And so there are a lot more like that are all around the lake fishing. So.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, that's it. I think we've covered just about everything we were going to cover today in this session. And I guess the only other thing is I want to say is my condolences that the Boston Red Sox are not in the playoffs this year. I don't say that to throw shade at you because the Yankees are, but I guess I am.
Well, I've been a Red Sox fan for about 71 years when I first realized what baseball was. I started playing baseball at 8 years old, and I was a Ted Williams, Jimmy Pearsall, that Jackie Jensen in right field. I was a fan from those days, and I will always be a Red Sox fan, win, lose, or draw. I don't jump on and off the bandwagon and cheer for whoever's doing well. and I know you don't either. And even though I'm not a Yankee fan, I respect them and I wish them luck. I'm particularly impressed with Aaron Judge. And,
62 this year.
Yeah, so yeah, it's been a long time since they won anything, so maybe it's their turn this year.
One of the most good-natured people I've ever met. And until my son, when he was much younger, we would go on the parade and we'd be on the pontoon boat. You know where I'm heading with this. And every year he would bring up his Yankee shirt and a Yankee cap, and he would specifically save it to wear it for the parade, just to see his neck turn red.
That's some good times.
Yeah,
good times,
yeah.
So. And that's all part of being on the lake.
Absolutely.
You know?
Hey, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, I enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Enjoy your winter and you know, go to a warmer climate, will you?
Thank you. I can't thank you enough for spreading the word about the lake. These little shows that you're doing are things that help spread the word and educate people on what's happening. And all I can do is ask people to let your neighbors know that it's out there. You know, we've been putting information out there for years, and if it's not reaching your neighbor, you need to get to your neighbor and say, hey, you know, you need to check the website out, you need to check what's going on. Well, pick up the phone and call and ask. I mean, I'm here all summer.
Put the email right here.
Sure.
Stop banging the table, you're making the camera shake.
Yeah. So anyway, so be sure.
Absolutely. In
Stay in
fact,
touch.
if you have an idea and you want to be featured in one of these Around Salem clips, reach out. I'd be happy to get you on the phone, set up a Zoom call or whatever it happens to be, and we'll set one up. If you've got a story that goes back and you have, you know, something you want to feature, we're all for it because we need content. So by all means, this is a two-way street here. All right. Again, pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, pleasure. Enjoyed it.